Welcome to our last video on preparing the virtual tour. Like the previous videos before it, this will also be in two parts. Together with the Hyperbook and the interactive lesson, the virtual tour affords educators access to a virtually limitless number of internet resources for teaching and learning. We've already reviewed how to prepare the Hyperbook and the interactive lesson, so we'll now turn our attention to the virtual tour. The virtual tour is a web-based teaching strategy that presents multi-sensory, multimedia instruction appropriate for individual student exploration and group learning experiences. The web-based features presented in this video build on fundamentals from previous chapters. When creating a virtual tour, the fundamentals for creating a web page that came from Chapter 8, Preparing Web-Based Materials, offered the basics of web design in general and how to use Microsoft Word to create and edit web pages. Please make sure that you have read Chapter 8 before tackling this video on the virtual tour. And as we move forward in this video, you may wish to continue practicing on the dinosaur homepage that we created in the earlier video. Again, this video is divided into two parts, more for ease of presentation than content. Advanced web page features of Microsoft Word required to construct the virtual tour include background colors, horizontal lines, table properties, creating and editing images, image hyperlinks, and animated graphics. As in Chapter 8, Microsoft Word will again be used as the editor of choice for creating the virtual tour. We will assume that you have mastered Chapter 8 and its discussion of the more simple web-based documents before moving forward in this video. A working mastery of creating and editing web pages is assumed and will be presented here only in passing. New features for creating the virtual tour that are more advanced will be addressed in detail. Using Microsoft Word to open the HTML file that you created in Chapter 8, go ahead and launch Word and locate the dinosaur homepage. Remember to open the HTML file and not the folder with the same name that contains the images. Adding background color and effects to web pages, especially for a virtual tour, presents a much more professional image. Click on Design, Page Color, and Fill Effects to add this feature. Follow this approach and experiment with the features and options before deciding on a final effect for your lesson. Click on the Design tab to access the Page Colors options. Click on Page Colors drop-down menu to see the available colors. Select a color, keeping in mind that it will serve as the background to text, and the text is usually black, along with images. So it's a good idea to select a lighter color that will show text and images the best, or a darker color and then make your text white. One of the options that you have is to use the fill effects to provide gradient, texture, pattern, or pictures. Again, it's best to experiment with these to figure out how the material looks best for your particular lesson. But once you've done that, save the changes to the virtual tour. Let's walk through the screenshot of the process. Step number 1, click on the Design tab to access the page color options. Step number 2 is click on the Page Color drop-down menu to see the available colors that you can choose from. Step number 3, select a color, keeping in mind that it will serve again as the background to your text. Step number 4, which is the optional step, is clicking on the fill effects, which will give you access to options such as gradient, texture, patterns, or pictures. Again, this is best done simply by a little bit of experimenting. Okay. The gradient, texture, pattern, and pictures gives you, you can change colors, you can change transparencies. In other words, let images and things kind of be see-through. You can use shading patterns like you see here. They give you a lot of options to really fancy up your virtual tour. And again, your final step is to go ahead and save the changes to the virtual tour. The next advanced web page feature that we're going to talk about is a very simple one. It's called the horizontal lines. And it's really used just to provide visual separation of content material on your web page. It's kind of a decorative purpose, if you will, but it can make it easier for younger children to follow what you're doing when you kind of parse your website, your web page, into pieces so they can see where you're going. Follow the steps you see on the screen and experiment again with the features as before deciding on a final effect. To get a horizontal line, position the cursor where the line is to appear and then click on Insert, Shapes, and Lines. Click and drag the anchor to insert the line, and then click on Shape Outlines to add effects such as giving your lines color. You can also select a weight or dashes feature if you'd like to kind of personalize the line a little bit more. And then again, at the end of each change that you're making, go ahead and save your new web files. Let's do the same thing we did before and walk through a screenshot of the process. Your first step, again, is to position the cursor on the page where you want the shape to be inserted. Click on Insert, and then Shapes, and then Lines. Pick a line and drag it over to your web page. You can use the shape outline here to add effects such as colors. A lot of times your lines are going to be black. Maybe you want to change them to different colors. In number 3, there's your theme colors. You can use those. Under the weight is where you can change your lines. Instead of straight lines like you see here, you can make them dotted lines or dashes, however you prefer to personalize the line. Okay, so that gives you some idea about how to create lines in your web page. The next advanced features is to take a look at some advanced table properties. We've already looked in earlier chapters how to insert a table. We did it in the Hyperbook. We did it in the interactive lesson. It's the same way when inserting a table onto a web page. The advanced features are provided by the table properties menu. And with a little practice, the table can also be edited to include rows and columns or individual cells, alignments, wrappings, sizing, and more, borders and shading. And so it becomes a very important option on a web page. Let's see if we can take a look at that in action here. Good. So Here's your table properties now. You get to the table properties on a PC by doing a right mouse click, and this menu will pop up. And you go to table properties, and you can see here that you can offer left, center, and right of your table. So you can center your table across the page. Text wrapping, so that you can butt text right up into images and things that you have inside your tables. And then kind of my favorite is borders and shading. Here you can change your borders to give them all sorts of different looks. And you can actually put different colors inside the table. That's the shading part of it. It's going to take a little bit of experimenting with it before you decide on the final effect that you like. But this can make for a much more robust table that you can use to provide data for your students. Okay, the next option for web page features is to create and edit images. A successful virtual tour includes images that will heighten the learning of diverse students. In previous chapters, you saw the rudimentary process of inserting pictures, online pictures, into your web pages and so on. What we're going to look at now is a couple of new editing features that allow the virtual tour designer to edit images that fit the lesson. By clicking on the image and locating the Picture Tool menu, you can begin to change and edit your images and offer things like locating, correcting, making corrections to the brightness and so forth, color, artistic effects. You can take your image and position it in line with adjacent text. In other words, you can do the wrapping features here. You can rotate images left or right, up or down, horizontal or vertical. And it just offers you a lot of additional features for your images. Notice down here is the picture tool. Once you click on a picture on the virtual tour page, this additional menu pops up. It's a little hard to see sometimes, and a lot of people don't see where it is. But if you click on page tool or picture tools, you will then see all of these other features like corrections and colors and the things that I just mentioned before. You can do a lot of things with a picture that you have downloaded from the internet. Okay. I think one of the last features that we might talk about is creating image-based hyperlinks. Okay. Again, we did that before in Chapter 8, but for the virtual tour, images oftentimes make the best link to sites that you want to send your students to. To convert an ordinary image into an active link, be sure to insert the image onto the web page first, click it, and then click on Insert Link and Hyperlink. And we're not going to go back through this, how we did this in Chapter 8, but I'm sure you remember that there were external links, which is the common one, okay, where they begin with http://, okay, and they provide a target web address somewhere on the internet, okay. And then we had internal links that we also talked about that do not begin with http, and then they provide links to files that are on your computer. And I know we talked about those, about how your files for a virtual tour, like your web pages, should be in the same physical directory, so the computer doesn't have to go looking for them. Okay, we actually do have something that was kind of new now to virtual tours, and that is the animated graphic. You might have heard these being called animated GIFs, but they're basically a series of individual images, individual pictures, if you will. And it's the web browser that scrolls through these rapidly to give the effect of a moving picture, much like a cartoon. There's a lot of internet sites out there that are offering animated graphics, animated GIFs, and you can search for those and harvest those for use in a lesson as you deem appropriate. Try searching the internet for animated graphics for education, and you will see it bring up an endless catalog of lesson appropriated graphics. The procedures for inserting the animated graphics is fairly straightforward. You'll simply take the image from the internet, copy and paste it onto your virtual tour web page. Okay, you can either copy and paste it directly onto the web page, or you can copy the animated graphic and save it to your computer, and then copy the image from your computer to the web page. Some people like to do that because then they save that image, and maybe they can use it again in other applications. The thing to remember here is that when you are creating animated graphics like this, that they don't actually move while you're in the edit mode, while you're doing this work here, while you're inserting them. You actually have to save the web page, so here's your save the changes again, and then bring up your browser and open up your virtual tour in your browser, and then you will see the animated graphics work. A lot of people, a lot of students, they will grab an animated graphic, they will put it onto their virtual tour, and then they're upset because it's not doing anything. They figured they did something wrong. Well, no, they didn't do anything wrong. It's that you're still in Microsoft Word, and Word doesn't do the animation. It's your browser that does the animation. Okay? So, part one of our lesson here it did an introduction to some of the advanced features for the virtual tour. It's a powerful humanistic teaching strategy, and it can really help students who are visual as well as auditory learners. Adding these advanced features to your bag of tricks of web competencies can prepare you for developing a truly remarkable virtual tour. So those are the mechanics, if you will, of what you're going to use to create a virtual tour. In part two of our lesson, we're going to introduce and focus on designing the virtual tour. We're going to use something called a front door, a series of 8 front doors that you can choose from, each uniquely suited to address a particular learning style. So when you get a chance, go ahead. We'll end this presentation now, and we'll see you in part two.